All right, welcome to the Faith and Life podcast. This is Mike Weaver, pastor at St. Luke, and here with Greg Osborne.
What's going on?
And we are here today talking about Christmas.
Ooh.
Let's go. I would have some jingle bells, but I don't have any jingle bells. Ching, ching, ching,
I feel like I need a nice hot cocoa right now, some tiny marshmallows on it.
And then in the background, hear Nat King Cole sing Chestnuts Roasting on.
So
that'd be great, right?
Fire, we'll edit that in.
Exactly. That'd be fun.
We'll put that in post.
Right. So here's my thought. I mean, as we think about faith and life and the Christmas message, the incarnation of Jesus is faith and life embodied in the life of Jesus. Like in that birth, faith and life come together in a really tangible way. So I want to dig a little deeper into that and get your perspective on it as well. But before we do that, let's do this. What is a tradition of yours currently, or one from the past you have great memories of?
So one thing that we've kind of taken from our childhood, and it was a silly tradition, but it was something that we always did. My dad always wore a Santa hat, and on Christmas morning. And then there was be a point in our life as we got older as kids where he would let someone else wear the Santa hat. And whoever wore the Santa hat got to distribute the presents from underneath the tree of like, who needs another present? Because, it's a free-for-all if you don't. And it's like someone has all their presents opened up and you don't know what, Jimmy or Sally got. And so my dad was always just like, we're going to open one. I'll distribute. Oh, you haven't had one for a while. You give it to my sister. And so, we've kind of started to do that with that. We have the Santa hat and have been incorporating that into, that way we can just enjoy the present, right? Like, it's like making sure everyone gets a present. We can see what they got. We can be thankful for that and have that moment. So opening Christmas presents takes a long time in our house because, it's like we kind of make sure everyone has one and then you can kind of open them and we kind of look around and stuff. But it's very evenly distributed.
Are you a Christmas Eve, Christmas gift opening, or Christmas morning?
I am 100% Christmas morning, 100%, and I think that's with my kids, having them like that experience and thing. We did Christmas presents on our first Christmas when Stacey and I were married. We did it Christmas Eve, but that was literally because we were flying to go on our honeymoon the next day because we just delayed our honeymoon after our wedding, so. We were just like, well, let's just open up Christmas presents now because we're getting up at 7 a.m. We're we don't need to deal with that. So we are mostly 100% open Christmas morning and all about setting up traditions, put the cookies and milk out and carrots for the reindeer and, writing a letter to Santa. And we go all out. We're big into the Christmas routine here at the Osborne household.
I love it. I love the hat.
Yeah.
So you had the hat.
I have a hat. It's not. I don't know if there was ever a specific this is the Santa hat that my dad always wore. It was just if you had a Santa hat, you got to do it.
Ah,
yeah,
fun.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I tell you, that reminds me of a story that the cookies and milk and the carrots. When our boys were younger, especially Josh and Ethan, they're within 1 year of each other. They were both in elementary school years ago. And I came back from a Christmas Eve service, and I coordinated this with Darcy, and I told her what I was going to do. It was a kind of a rainy Christmas Eve, probably 10 years ago. And I took some boots and I put them in the mud, and I put mud boot tracks in the upper hallway, outside their door, down the steps, a little bit in the hallway around the Christmas tree, as if Santa had come in. And so these guys woke up and what are these footprints? I'm like, what are these footprints? And they're like, oh my gosh, he was here. It was the best thing ever. Then they finally put it all together. They're like, okay, wait a minute. So it was fun.
I want to know what he was doing upstairs, though. Is he checking the fireplace upstairs? What's he doing creeping around the top floor of your house?
Yeah.
Man, Santa's a creeper.
What the heck, Santa?
Come on, Santa.
Take you out. So one of the traditions that I used to I used to love, and I told this in staff, and I brought back to my family. And now, as I think about it this year, I'm like, I need to do it again. That is, when I was a kid, my mom's side of the family would get together, and it would be my great great grandma, my great aunt, my extended my cousins and uncles, and I mean the whole it was like 20 people in a
Yeah.
house, and we had a piano. My great grandma would play Christmas music on the piano. We had I think we had like little songbooks. We passed them out. And we all sang. It was after dinner. We sang Christmas carols with great grandma Trotwine playing the piano. My great aunt Frida would sit on the couch and she'd fall asleep because she had a little glass of wine after dinner, after eating the turkey, and she's just kind of zonked out while everybody's singing. And for me, I was like, what, 8, 9, 10 years old. I thought it was really fun. I
Yeah.
just really loved it. It was always Christmas evening. We'd have Christmas dinner together as that family, and over the years, now since all that family has passed away and people have moved away, and it's been that was a long time ago. I don't play the piano, but I play guitar. And a couple times when my family's gotten together, I broke out the guitar and had song sheets, and we sang some songs. I remember the first time I did it, my brother, who's older than me, said afterwards, he said, "Oh, I just love this. I'm so glad you did this." And I appreciated that for my brother, but I said never have done it. I mean, I've only done it 1 or 2 times since.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, we need to redo this because it is a really fun tradition to keep forward because not too many families like sing together like that.
Right.
I mean, it's even odd for people to come to a gathering on Sunday morning and sing songs together.
Right.
That doesn't happen unless you go to a concert, right?
Yeah. Oh, true.
And Christmas is such, there's so many songs in the Christmas season, and to have that moment together, it's just really a really good experience.
That's neat. Yeah, it's so cool to hear. Everyone has Christmas traditions and stories, and it's just as funny because how they change, right, and how they adapt as you get older and stuff. And like, we kind of shut down Christmas at our house around 2 o'clock and we transition it because my wife Stacy's born on Christmas, so we transition it as then it's Stacy's birthday.
Oh yeah.
So
right.
we're very strict in our house of they are two separate events. You can't just like lump in Christmas presents and birthday presents and be like, oh, it's like, no, you're getting
Yeah.
separated them. So and we also, she's going to kill me for saying this, but who cares? We also have our Christmas tree up, and we also then, the girls and I decorate our Stacy tree.
Oh wow.
So it's a small little Christmas tree
Yeah.
that we put her birthday presents around, and it has pictures of her
Oh,
that we printed out one time, and and we just have it. And then the girls start to sing their favorite song, "Oh Stacy Tree,"
oh.
after we've decorated the Stacy tree by putting up the pictures.
Oh, that
we
is
sing "Oh Stacy Tree." So
that's the best.
it's just but it's funny, like it's that is a tradition now that is part of our family. That is a new one because of just how life changes, and as your family grows and changes, it happens. I was like, man, never thought I'd be singing
Yeah.
"Oh Stacy
Oh,
Tree,"
Stacy
growing
Tree.
up as a kid, but here I am.
So wait, whose idea was this?
Oh, it was 100% mine.
Your idea.
100%. Because we met in January. All the long story short, we got met, engaged, and married within the span of 9 months. So our first Christmas together ever was as a married couple, and so I was like, "What do I do?" Like it's not only is it our first Christmas together, it was her first birthday with me. Like in any, I'm just like, "Oh man, what do I do?" So I was like, "I'm gonna make a Stacy tree," and so as we're decorating, as we kind of merged our Christmas decorations together, she had a small little Christmas tree. I'm like, "That's perfect. That's gonna be our Stacy tree."
Oh my gosh.
And so, and we've kept it up, and we keep it up. And now that the girls are older, they understand that mommy's birthday is on Christmas, and so we celebrate it, and they crack up about it. They're like,
Oh, that's awesome.
they're like, "Can we sing the song?" I'm like, no, we can't keep singing the song every day.
Oh, that's fantastic. And the cake can't be Christmas colors.
No, and the wrap. See, I learned this from my mom, whose birthday is 2 days before Christmas. So, like, it has to be birthday wrapping paper. It can't be anything Christmas. Like, it has to be wrapped in birthday. And so, like, that's transitioned into it too. Of man, my mom took birthdays very seriously, and so we've tried to keep that tradition alive too. So we separate Christmas, and I have to tell people sometimes, like, no, you can give her a present later at the birthday party, even if you can't be there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's I mean, I feel that. My birthday is December 29th, so it's right in
Yeah,
that window where you're kind of in the window of Christmas and New Year's. And by the way, there's a birthday sandwiched in there too.
right.
And I have no bad memories of it, but I always like to joke. You do feel a little shortchanged.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, hold on a second. Look, when I was a kid, I couldn't bring snacks to my elementary school. That was the thing we did,
yep.
right? Oh no, we were on vacation, so nobody said, "Oh, Mike, when you come back in January, you can bring cookies to our class." Well, nobody ever said that.
No.
Not that I'm really bitter, but I am.
That's a little bit. There's a little piece inside that you're like, ah. I mean, it sounds like your birthday is basically the Thanksgiving of holidays, right? You go from Halloween to Christmas, you skip Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
You go from Christmas to New Year's, you skip Mike's birthday.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I was born,
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. All right. No, but yeah. So let me ask you this question just emerged, and I never thought about this question until this very moment.
Yeah.
As we think about traditions, we think about faith and life. I mean, what role does tradition have that deepens our faith or roots our faith?
Yeah.
I guess that's the question. I mean, tradition is good. I like tradition. I don't like traditionalism where we kind of get stuck. Right. That definitely can happen. But I think there's a place for traditions, and I'm curious about that tradition as it relates to faith.
Well, I mean, you think about it, and we could ask anybody on this podcast, what's a Christmas tradition you have? And people can instantly tell it, right? Even if it's maybe something that they don't do anymore, but there was something that they resonate with. And I think we are so often in the church quick to throw away tradition, right? Because we're like, oh, well, like, but if you watch the video or if you're listening and you watch the video and you see you talking about your tradition or me talking, you light up.
Yeah.
You glow. There's something about, not, I won't even say like nostalgia, but there, like taking you back to a time where there was a joy and something around. And so, I think there's a connectivity, right? When you do some traditions, I think in the church, you feel connected to, maybe as when you're a kid, but maybe even further up, like, this is something the church has done for generations upon generations and generations. And, like it's when you have a family heirloom, I think it's kind of cool. You're like, oh, we passed down this, stuffed teddy bear or whatever, and boom, boom, boom. It has a special meaning to it. And I think we are wired to appreciate and like those traditions. I think it's important for faith too because it gives us something that we can, be something tangible to kind of relate to when everything else is going on and everything feels messed up. We can go to this feels right.
Yeah.
This feels good. I mean, and I think we saw that, you see that sometimes in the church too of when we try to make some changes or something and it's like, you're messing with tradition. It's tough because tradition is such a strong thing. So how do you balance that, traditionalism, like you said, but I think it's a very important part of the church that sometimes gets overlooked or can sometimes be people are so quick to want to get rid of tradition and change it and tweak it.
Yeah, because tradition is about the heart. So
Yeah.
if you start messing with traditions, you're messing with something deeper inside somebody. It's just not their head.
Yeah.
There's an emotional connection to whatever that is. And if it's taken away, it feels like a part of me has been taken away. Or, I might look nostalgically at my family who gathered when my great grandma would play the piano and so forth. But I have an emotional connection to that and I have appreciation of what was, but bringing it back into what it could look like today with a guitar versus a piano, that tradition bonds us together. And I like what you said, it connects us to what's happened to the past. So there's a greater thing happening for centuries. People have done X, Y, and Z, and we're continuing this tradition just as our ancestors had done. And that's a really cool thing that is grounding as human beings.
Yeah, and I think, you have that with the early church too, right? Like, we don't have some of the amenities that we do nowadays. And so, the early church grew off of tradition. And, that's how they were able to continually build off of past traditions that they did, and to facilitate the growing of the Christian church and things like that.
Right. So you think about the advent of Christmas itself, the celebration of Christmas. It's not in the scriptures.
Right.
The celebration of it. It came much after the birth of the church, within a couple hundred years, and the Christians borrowed it from a Roman holiday, right?
Yep.
And people have criticized Christianity because of that, but I don't think that's I think it's unfair criticism. I mean, human beings do this. It's just we are assigning, Christians began to assign a new meaning to what was already happening in society, and even the Christians, it's as if I've not studied this, but if I put myself in that place, it's like, well, we find this society finds this day to be meaningful. It connects to this Christian message. We want to celebrate the birth of Messiah, and let's use that tradition that's already there and put a new meaning to it. And then from that point on, Christians from whenever that year was have celebrated the same thing. I mean, the celebration of Christmas itself is its own tradition just by worshiping the birth of the Messiah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a long history to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. So think about the incarnation. So this clash might be maybe too harsh of a word, but more it is the joining together of faith and life, right? And how that has shaped us even today, and in our own particular lives.
Yeah.
And the incarnation, and I've heard it said incarnational ministry. You ever heard that? I mean, so when I was early as a pastor, I remember thinking about, how do I live incarnationally with the people that I'm serving as a pastor?
Okay.
And I never fully answered the question. And it's been my question for decades. Like, how do I incarnate this message of the gospel in the context in which I'm living in this current present day? I mean, that's what Jesus did. He incarnated a message.
Yeah.
He infleshed it. And he showed us what faith looks like. He showed us what faith looks like when it's in the real present tense. And where I kind of land with it is the incarnational way of being, as a pastor, but as a Christian in the world. I mean, it's not just me being a pastor. The question emerged because I was a pastor, but it's a question for all of us, that we embody the message in our imperfection, and as we live it out in ordinary ways, we become incarnational in our way of being. That's kind of where I've been, my working definition of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of basically of you're taking your faith and just living it out through a daily practice is kind of the groundwork of incarnational living for you.
Yeah.
Of taking the biblical teachings of Jesus's life and the gospel and putting it into, without preaching, and teaching and saying it, you're letting it be a part of what you're doing at the grocery store, how you're acting on the on the sports field as a coach on the sidelines, that almost that idea of, what would Jesus do?
Yeah, exactly. And who would Jesus be in this
world?
Yeah. And what would Jesus think? I mean, all these things, because the incarnation of Jesus, as Jesus grew up, and I can't think of the guy's name. I'm blanking on his name. A Christian thinker from the 19th century. He started the movement, the Little Brothers of Jesus. Now it's the Little Brothers and Sisters of Jesus. Anyway, his whole point was that incarnational living it looks like Nazareth. Okay. So his point is, look, for 30 years, Jesus lived on this planet as an ordinary, common laborer. And there's no record of anything happening. It's only the Gospels when he shows up at age 30, roughly. I mean, that's our estimate of what age he was. But and then the Gospels show up, this is what he looks like. But for 30 years, we understand he was a carpenter, learned a trade from his dad. He probably had neighbors, he had friends, he did X, Y, and Z things.
Yeah.
And he embodied a message without people even knowing it.
Yeah.
right? And so this guy's point is we all have a Nazareth, quote unquote, wherever we are. And the way of Jesus, in the way as a Christian who follow Jesus, the incarnational living is living and serving in obscurity through our actions, in the dirty nitty gritty of life. And that in that nitty gritty of life, the gospel shows up. I mean, I'm like, oh, I really like that. Because I can use words all day, but it also has to show up in where I put my feet.
Yeah.
And who I hang around with, and all those things.
Yeah,
and ordinary life.
And how do you just incorporate it? What is it? St. Francis of Assisi. It's like preach the gospel, use words if necessary, right? Like, how did that incorporate of, it almost feels like thinking of it from like you said, having that Nazareth of where Jesus almost was. He was building who he was, so that then when he came into his ministry, it's like this is who Jesus has always been, like this, and now he's adding this element to it. Isn't that the foundational aspect of, we're going off tangents here, I love it, of like our evangelistic ministry, right? Rather than going on a street corner and preaching, we've now tried to shift our evangelism strategy of you have to be in a relationship with people. You have to have a community. And as you do that, it naturally will flow out of, that's what we talked about so long at St. Luke for a long time, for years, of organic outreach, right? Of letting it just be something that's naturally brews out of your existence in your relationships, your communication, and then allowing the ministry to happen through that.
Right. So for Jesus, it was 30 years of trust building.
Yeah.
Right? So to your point, he shows up, people go, oh my gosh, and they see this, and he starts doing these healings and all these things. And there was a point, I think, that these people knew him for all these decades. And they trusted him for who he was, and so that when this stuff shows up, they go, wow, this is just the manifestation of everything of who we've known him to be anyway. And the value of outreach and organic outreach and evangelism for our day as to incarnate the gospel in that way, to be very trustworthy people, so that when we do use words, people go, well, that makes complete sense. I get it. I might not agree with it, but there's something of value there because that person is in such a way that there's a depth to that person, a groundedness.
Yeah.
That's trustworthy.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Man, we've covered a lot of ground, Craig.
We did. Well, hey, it's a Christmas special. We're allowed to go.
Man, and there's more we could do, but I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
So, hey, if anybody's looking for a place to worship on Christmas Eve, certainly we gather on Christmas Eve this year, 2, 4, 6, and 8.
Yeah.
The 4 o'clock is a family service in the fellowship hall. 2, 6, and 8 are traditional liturgies in the sanctuary.
The 6 and 8 has special music.
Yeah, special music, bell choir, there's brass, the chancel choir, and so on. And then Christmas morning, we're going to gather together. It's Sunday morning, but we're not going to gather together for all the services. For those who'd like to join us on Christmas morning, 10 o'clock, we join together.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be great. So, thanks again, everybody, for listening, and Merry Christmas.
If you are listening and someday I got a story I want to tell, talk to Mike or myself and say, man, we'd love to connect and hear your story. So,
good. Into 2023. Here we go.